Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sunny Side podcast. Today, I am joined by Mr. Orville Matias. He is the founder and CEO of a company called Centience, and I'm going to let Orville introduce himself. Orville, how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks, Ben, for having me on.
No worries. Well, I can't wait to unpack everything that you're doing today, Orville, because you're definitely a very interesting gentleman to have on in this space. So, could you give us a little bit of an introduction of who you are, please?
Absolutely. So I am realistically a tech specialist at heart. Right? I've been doing this for 21 plus years, on a
Yeah.
professional basis. I did 14 really when I got into technology. My first computer, building out tech. But realistically today, the focus is more so on the governance side of technology, right? So with all the experience that I've accumulated throughout the years, that's kind of the focus has been for the past 10 plus years at this point, where we work closely with regulated industry companies, specifically SEC, FINRA, HIPAA, and really make sure that the platforms that we have them on are in compliance and that they can pass an audit and that they can pass an examination and that they are secure overall. And of course, at the same time, offering the best user experience.
Nice, makes sense. So could we fast forward backwards? So what kind of led you to start Sentience? A little bit about your journey up until the point, if that's okay, please.
Absolutely. So the company that I started back in 2005 was called CompuWork. It's still active. Most of our clients are still on there. And CompuWork was basically an idea that I had to really get into IT, right? And the focus was managed services. So
Okay.
that's kind of about and it was great for a long time, right? I think when I chose to name CompuWork, what I had in mind was computers that work, right? That's really what
Yeah.
comp means. But the environment has evolved so much since, right? With AI now in the mix, it's really has evolved to something that I think CompuWork can kind of embrace, even though we're still the same team in our hearts. But realistically, it is something that we've been doing now for a while, and that governance, that evolution to governance to more focus on cybersecurity compliance, and now AI has really taken into becoming sentience.
Nice. So what actually is Sentience? What are you doing for clients? What's your value proposition? Like, what's the outcome of somebody using Sentience?
So realistically, the focus is mostly on governance, right? Technology governance. So, most of our clients that we deal with are like I said, in regulated industries, specifically SEC. I think that's where most of our clients live,
Yeah.
FINRA and HIPAA, but SEC being our main. And I would say that, when we onboard a client, most of the issues they're having on top of just your day-to-day support issues is really trying to figure out how do they run a compliance program that includes technology. That's really what the challenge is, right? I mean, compliance
Mhm.
officers know their job, what they need to do. They know what the requirements are from an SEC standpoint. They understand, how to manage users, et cetera. But the issue that they don't understand is technology. How do they bridge the gap, right? And that's kind of when we come in. We typically go and have a governance, risk, and compliance system in place, or a GRC in place that we kind of onboard our clients with. So we start with the process of where are you now in terms of your baseline and where do you want to go, right? And from there, we start creating policies that realistically not only looks into the future, but takes into account what they're doing now. Because the part of what a lot of firms do there's a huge mistake is that they say that they're doing A, B, C, and D, when realistically they're only doing A, B, C. And that is an issue if you have an examination, you have an auditor, if they come in that you have a policy in place that realistically is not being enforced, right, it's a problem. You're better off saying that you don't have it and that you're working towards it versus having it and not enforcing it. So we kind of come in and create that list where we kind of go through the compliance officers. If they have a CTO on staff or CISO on staff, we work with them, or even an internal IT team. We've had those type of relationships as well, but realistically, we kind of guide them through the process of getting them to where they need to be to, at the very least, have a baseline to be in compliance, right? And then we kind of go from there in terms of what is their vision? What do they need to get accomplished as a team? What tool are they using? Where is their exposure, their risk, et cetera? And then we kind of bring it all together But what we do differently, realistically, is that we kind of bridge the gap between cybersecurity and compliance, right? And we're able to kind of speak the language on both sides. What I mean by that is that, most compliance officers obviously understand the requirements, but they have a hard time understanding the technology behind it. And the same thing can be said about if we're dealing with a CTO or a CISO or internal IT team, where they understand what they have to do on their end, but the compliance part, it kind of gets lost in translation. So we kind of are that translator, I guess you can call it, between the two parties, and kind of are able to not only come up with the plan, but guide them through it, implement, integrate, and realistically enforce, right? The way we enforce it, that we actually manage the day to day, typically, to make sure that whatever's occurring on a daily basis is actually what we have in place as a system.
Nice. That makes complete sense. How does it tie into CompuWork? Is it something completely different, or are they kind of working alongside each other, or?
So CompuWork realistically was that. It evolved to that. It's just that with Centience now, it's really the name really represents what we're doing, right? So it's not that we're doing something that much different from CompuWork. Realistically, we're not at this point, because most of our clients have been in this realm for a long time now. And we started, like, for example, I worked with a company very closely, called PCI HIPAA, that I joined in 2010. Funny enough, it was something that I joined. One of our customers brought us in, brought me in
Yeah.
to kind of into building into building PCI HIPAA, into building an application called Office Safe, and I stayed on board for 14 years doing that. I helped basically create Office Safe. I helped get it off the ground, work with developers to really code and make sure that everything we were doing was, in this case, HIPAA, this is where we were serving, was HIPAA compliant. And I think during that time, we probably served over 5,000 healthcare providers, to make sure that they were in HIPAA compliance. We passed audits, we passed examinations, and realistically, we helped bridge that gap, right? And that kind of led me to evolve CompuWork into something more as I was learning and implementing on the PCI HIPAA side. I was also learning and implementing the CompuWork side and providing additional services for our customers as they arise. I mean, I think initially we were always, whenever we had an engagement, it was always about IT MSP, right? And we continued to evolve that, because clients didn't know where to go. Like, where do you go for this and the other and the other? So
Yeah.
like, phone calls and conversations and being included and even board meetings at that point, where I would say, not necessarily green, but still learning the ropes. And because of that, I think early on I understood what the worries were on both sides, right? And that's kind of where CompuWork evolved into now Sentience.
Nice. So is Sentience basically CompuWork with an extra bit, a couple of things that under a new name, essentially?
It's more than that, right? It realistically, CompuWork's focus has always been an IT MSP, right, at heart, right? Our
Yes.
focus now is more of a technology governance company, right? So our focus on each client, the way what we've been doing for years, which is with a GRC, which is looking at their baseline, looking where they need to go versus just IT management and support that CompuWork originally was.
Okay. Well, that does make sense. So are you still going to be doing MSP services under Sentience, or are you going to do it under
Well, it
CompuWork?
is going to be part of some, and the reason why is because where a lot of people drop the ball is that they'll come up with a plan, they'll implement it, they'll integrate, and they stop there. And that is where the biggest risk happens, right? Because you can have the best plan in the world, but if you're not enforcing it, it's not worth anything. It's just
Mm.
paper. Where most of the people that do this kind of fail, I would say, because it's kind of like giving the keys to someone to drive that doesn't know how to drive yet, right? So that's kind of where we come in and say, well,
I like that.
now we have it all in place. Now we need to manage the day to day to make sure that the enforcement is there. So, the IT MSP, you can say it will still be there. We're calling it tech governance because it's more than just your day to day support, that most IT, traditional IT MSP provide.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Okay, you've cleared that up. So you've been obviously going as an MSP for a long time, in about 20 years, is that right?
That is correct. 20, 21 plus.
Long time. How has the company evolved, and how has what you're offering evolved, and the transformation that you can give to clients? How has it all changed over the years?
No, I mean, it really has evolved. I mean, I think when we first started, it was realistically we had two line items, right? We had a management fee and we had a support fee, and that's all we did. And as time progressed, we added cybersecurity, right, to our mix because that was part of, we didn't have the same worries that we had in 2010 that we do, let's say, 2015. Technology is
Yeah.
always evolving. Makes it so great and interesting, but it's really evolved into so much more. And being part of just any company as an IT MSP, realistically, you're part of their technology stack, right? Whether you like it or not, you're an extension of them. You represent your customers, and you really have to be there. I think a lot of IT MSPs don't do the same thing. They call it as is, which is basically just support. But realistically, we see it as an extension of the company, which I think that's what makes us so great and so different. And you can ask our customers; they'll tell you the same that we're an integral part of their business. But that's kind of where we differentiate, I would say.
Nice. What are some of the things that you see MSP owners getting wrong? Obviously, you're a bit of a veteran in the game and you're still here, so you must be doing something right. Like, what are some of the common mistakes and some of the patterns that you see people getting wrong with their business?
Well, I think the biggest misconception is that they think that being an IT MSP is just support, right? That's really, and a lot of people have that point of view, which is why I guess for us, we're into more, I guess, specialized industries, right? Because the requirements are different for every industry, right? As you know. And when you're dealing with anything that's regulated, you do have to follow those rules, right? What's in place, what is enforceable. Cybersecurity, for example, is always a concern. I mean, you can read the articles of hacks that happened recently, right? Ransomware attacks, etc. But they're different for every industry. And when you're dealing with whether it's in finance or you're dealing with healthcare, you do have to protect that data, not only for the company, but it's your duty to protect it for others that you're holding it for, right? Like if you're finance, you have investments, you have investors, you have all this information that is critical that you have a duty to protect. And the same thing goes for healthcare. You have to protect HIPAA, you have to protect PHI records, right? So all those things have to kind of come into place. And I think that most IT MSPs just think that they're providing a service of support and maybe onboarding and offboarding and break fix. And that really isn't I think that's yesterday's or even a decade
Yeah.
ago, the way things are companies run it today.
Yeah, so you think come more proactive, more like actually like a strategy in place, fixing things before they break, as opposed to just firefighting, essentially.
Yes, so that's one of the things that we do, right? Is obviously we have our remote management tools in place, we have our MDM in place, we enforce policies, we enforce updates. We really are able to see things before they happen and avoid downtime for our end users, right? So whether it's a computer that's breaking down, right, we replace it before it happens, or where we see issues of security, we obviously patch it before it becomes a problem. So those are the things that we're kind of thinking ahead on top of just like the governance part we talked about. I mean, that is part of the reality is that we also have to look at so many different things, right, in terms of security.
Yeah. What type of niches and sectors are you actually working with? Like, or is it have you got a particular target market, or is it quite broad?
I think, I mean, listen, we have customers from all realms, right? We have customers in healthcare, we have customers in legal, we have customers, of course, in finance. But our two verticals realistically that work really well for us are those two, which is finance and healthcare. And again, it comes down to understanding what those sectors require to protect data. Right? Realistically, when it comes down to it, yes, we're a great service provider. Yes, we provide great support. We provide great cybersecurity, but it's that data governance, right, that really matters because that is really, if you get a breach, it's so expensive and so costly, not only from a financial standpoint, but also reputation standpoint, right? So we kind of take that into account in everything that we do.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely critical. What are some of the things that you see to say, like, say that they are like a healthcare or a finance client, like you said? before working with somebody like you, like what are the common things that they're getting wrong? Do you notice patterns that you see?
Uh, Patterns that I see is I think documenting things that they want to have in place that are not in place. Not realistically having a check and balances, right? Like I was speaking to a client of ours, and they're concerned about implementing AI. They
Yeah,
want to use it. They've seen all the benefits of using it. They've spoken to a lot of firms that have it, and they're like, well, we definitely have to get on the bandwagon. But they are not understanding how do we implement, right? And part of the reason is, I mean, we have obviously the tools that we put in place, we have the implementations, we have the securing the endpoints, et cetera. But we also have to trust the people using it, right? And that's mostly from a compliance standpoint, right? If I am Centience, our concern stops at the tech side. But realistically, we are having conversations with the compliance side saying, well, how do we make sure that that the users are following the guidelines, right? And to be honest, those tools don't exist yet, right? That's
yeah.
actually one of the I'm actually working with right at the moment as a cloud layer, trying to figure out how do we implement these tools to safeguard not only the technology side of things, but also work with compliance to make sure that they're happy with what we're implementing, right? Because now they have a new concern that they didn't have prior to AI, right? So that's really it comes down to we take care of the technology. We also got to take care of the compliance, and we bridge the gap and make it all work together. And that's really where the challenge comes.
Do you think AI is dangerous for businesses?
I think AI is probably going to be our best tools that we've ever seen since the internet. I'll be honest. I think that it's that great and probably even better than that. But I think at the same time, it can be very dangerous. If you look at Claude's new system, where they can go and actually see all these risks and exposures and anyone can use it. I mean, that's part of the problem, right? Is that
Uh,
most people will use it for good, but there always be bad actors that can obviously manipulate the system to use it for bad. And that's kind of where we need to think about. As long as we're, I would say, implementing it responsibly, I think AI is amazing.
okay. What are some of the things that businesses are getting wrong when they try to implement AI? Like, where are they open for cyber criminals and where are they just getting it wrong in general?
That's actually, there's a few places, not on one, but I think the first one that I do see is the rush to implement AI, right? I think most companies want to get a subscription of something and just start using it, and that is the wrong approach, right? You're putting data at risk from day one, and you don't
Hmm.
want to do that. The other issue is that a lot of companies think, well, let's implement AI, we'll get a corporate account, do our enterprise account, right? We'll get it set up, and put all the tools in place. But if you don't know what other people are using, that becomes a problem. If you have users that have their own ChatGPT account, right, or Claude account, or Perplexity, or whatever AI they may be using, and feeding company data into it, or even using a company email address, right? Not necessarily doing anything there, but anything that's related to the company, you're putting the company at risk. The issue is that most people don't know what they have running behind them. I mean, that's critical to understand, and that's actually where we come in. We actually put a system in place that is able to detect what are they using, right? Who's using what service? It's called shadow AI, right? So basically, we're protecting against shadow AI, but it goes further because with AI, you can integrate right so many connections. Right? There's so many um, endpoints to protect, right? So when we in IT, when we talk about endpoints, we were always referring to laptops, desktops, servers, etc. Now we got to think about endpoints as connections to AI. So for example, if you're using Claude, you may have 20 external connections that are connected to Claude.
Yeah.
Now endpoints have to also be protected. They're just not, we can connect them and now that we're working and it's fantastic. We have to also worry about what's happening with those connectors. Who's using it, who can see it, how much data is coming in and out. How do we know when something is suspicious? How do we block it? So those things we also implement and kind of take into account before we go live.
That's really interesting. So how could some so obviously like with Claude and stuff like they you can have it so they can act like the co-work and stuff so they can actually see all of your emails and stuff like that. So you're saying that that's not actually like that secure, not really that safe.
Well, it's not if you don't have the endpoint protection in place, right? Because it's a great tool. I mean, agentic AI is truly amazing, and it is the future where you can have, tons of agents working while you do one thing and manage everything. It's fantastic. And it's the fact that you don't know what agentic AI is doing in the background, right? And you don't know who may have found an API key that they can kind of take and exploit, right? So those are the things that we account and like, well, we need to make sure we connect, we protect, and that we can protect, and that we can see what's happening, right? So we do audit logging. I mean, realistically, we're looking at logs and see daily activity, learning how users are using AI in general, so we can understand behavior security, right? And that's one of the things that we're implementing for.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So I want to speak a little bit more of around the business ownership side of things, entrepreneurial stuff. Since you started 20 years ago, what have been some of the lessons that you've learned that have maybe been quite harsh but have taught you a lot? Would you mind sharing a couple of those with us?
I think early on, one of my first customers, which has turned into a great relationship. We had an outage. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were running a local exchange server on-prem in their
Hmm.
office. It was in Arizona. I'm in New York, and we're running all this externally and doing a great job. But the server crashed. It crashed, and he told me, time is money. And at the time, I was young. I was in my 20s, and I didn't truly understand what he
Yeah.
meant by until I understood how having 30 people out of not getting or receiving emails was a huge problem because it was costing him so much money to have people sitting around waiting for emails to come in. And I think that's where we needed to have redundancy. We needed to check things before they happened, right? And I think that was the biggest learning experience I ever had was the fact
Really?
that because it was extremely stressful to have, no emails. I mean, think about it. This is before Microsoft 365. It didn't exist. Everyone had emails, but you had it hosted somewhere, mostly on-prem. So, and having it on-prem, it's great because you control the data, you own it. But the issue is that whenever you have issues and you go down, there's no redundancy. So after that, I started implementing redundancy in everything we did, at least when we had, servers in mind.
Yeah. Really? That's interesting when you put it like that. I mean, what in regards to like what you've actually done to bring the business forward, like how important has team, has hiring, has culture been for you, Orville, inside of the company?
I think it's been huge. I mean, I had CompuWork for a long time before I hired anyone. Initially I thought of just being a one
Really?
man show. Yeah, I
Yeah.
kind of enjoyed it for myself, and then I realized that you can't just have one person running IT. It's dangerous, right? If something
Yeah.
happens to me, there's so many people counting on me. So I started hiring people, and realistically, I started hiring young. So we kind of molded the right employee, I would say. And I think one of our oldest employees has probably been with us for probably like 12 years now.
Wow.
We have really, our employees have been with us for a long time. Like we have great relationships with our employees. It's a great place to work. It's a great place to learn. And we're always evolving. That's the one thing that we do have. And I think we all learn from each other because everyone has different experiences and everyone has different things they like to do. Like we have a systems administrator that he just loves managing systems, right? We have a
Really?
file, we have data centers, and he loves being in that world. I mean, he just lives and breathes all day. And we have another person that loves doing AI. Like he's just so passionate about AI. We have another one that just loves to do cybersecurity, looking at logs and looking at scenes and looking at events. And so
Crazy, yeah.
everyone can kind of do a lot of right, but there's always a focus on what they do, and realistically, they feed each other. We all do.
Nice. So when you are looking to hire, what are the type of traits and the attributes that you are actually looking for in an individual?
I think our first trait, realistically, is a people person. And I know it sounds weird for IT, right? Because you think,
Yeah.
well, they really are. They like to be by themselves and just. But it's so important to have the level of communication. So we always look at people that have, customer service backgrounds or at least sales backgrounds, so that they can understand how people work, right? And realistically be able to relay messages because, a lot of times we have a lot of, stuff that repeats every day. And most of it is simple stuff that's easily we even have AI agents on our end that's able to do it automatically for some of these tasks. But there's some just problematic, right? We want to be able to communicate that with the customer and let them know what's going on and understand the time frames of coming back or whatever the issue may be, or even if we're implementing something, right? Like we'll get today, can you guys implement ABC? And it's like, it's 12 o'clock today. They're asking at 5, is it done? Like, well, it's going to take a week. Why a week? So we need people to be able to communicate that with our customers and really, and have there's that gap of communication that I think stresses someone on the other end, not understanding what's happening in the background.
Mm. Would you hire competence and all of the traits that you've mentioned, or would you hire somebody with experience?
Competent and experienced, to be honest. I hire for both, right? But I think
You'd like both.
I hire for both, but they do have to have customer service experience in some capacity. There's no way for me to hire. They can be the best technician in the world, but if you can't communicate, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
We went the other way, and it doesn't work. I remember we had this amazing engineer that we had hired to do amazing things, but unless we kept him to only A, he wasn't able to function. Um,
Right.
you know, he would not like speaking to people, that he would via email, so it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah. You would never think that in IT either, that you'd want somebody with good people skills, because I feel like a lot of the people are quite introverted, quite like just like to be on their own. So that's interesting to hear that from yourself. I mean, if we look into the future, with sentience and everything that you're trying to do, like what do you think has to change or shift in what you're currently doing in order to get to the next level, in order to basically, yeah, bigger business, or I don't even know if that is what you want to do, but if that is what you want to do, like what, or do you think it's just a matter of letting time do its thing?
Honestly, I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn posts on a daily basis, and the reason why is I feel like there really isn't. There's a lot of people posting about AI, but I don't think most people understand. You mentioned earlier that I thought that I think AI was dangerous, right? And to a certain extent, yes. I mean, it is. It is actually extremely dangerous if you look at it from
Yeah,
the point of just using it without any sort of guardrails, right? So a lot of thought leaders talking about guardrails, but again, the guardrails only ends at implementation, and that's where I think where our space is, where we can obviously take it a step further, run it, manage it day to day. It is what is missing, right? So I think that will grow obviously as the word gets out. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm part of the reason I'm doing this podcast, right? I think that it's the word out and really have people understand that AI, as great as it is, does have its risk, and that it's as long as you have the tools and the right mentality in place, you can make it work. So then just hope it brings.
yeah, 100%. Well, listen, Orville, it's been a very insightful conversation here, hearing you speak about your journey and everything that you've got going on. If the audience are looking to get in touch with you, sir, what would be the best way for them to find you?
Best way to go. I mean, they can definitely go to the website, right? Centience. It's with C, not an S. CENTIENCE.ai. Or they can just email me or find me on LinkedIn. I'm Orville M on LinkedIn. Just find me and I'll come up. They can always call. Our number is 877-945-7177. And we're happy to just to speak to anyone. There's no commitment realistically. We have on our website we have an AI guide that they can easily download. There's no commitment to it. We just want to educate everyone out there.
Nice. Orville, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it, sir.
Ben, I appreciate it. Take care.